Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Yep. Another day in paradise for you, me, and all the world, because we are here today and we have a fantastic, I got to get rid of some of this stuff on my desk. We have a fantastic show for you today. Can I say to all of my white nationalist followers out there, I'm so sorry for saying that, but I had to crack that joke, and now people will take me seriously. But I've heard your complaints. The show's been too black lately. Nothing but black people on camera with you, Whitlock. Where's T.J. Moe? And so by FedEx package, we brought T.J. Moe in to remind everybody. I do get complaints a lot of times, TJ, when you're not around. What happened to TJ? Where's TJ Moe? Well, he lives in St. Louis.
I've been a token most of my life. I'm happy to continue.
Well, now you are. Think of this as the wide receiver room, TJ.
Thank you.
And me, Shemeka, Virgil, and Anthony are holding it down for you. TJ runs a 4.940. Anyway, we have a fantastic show planned for you today. We're going to get into Pride Month and what's going on in the world of sports as it relates to Pride Month. I hope I didn't throw anything important away there. Oh, my notes are over here. Steve Kim's going to join us as we expand the conversation beyond the Pride Month and bring in some other aspects of the conversation. Deion Sanders, we'll talk about this with Steve. Deion Sanders is still offering up complaints about the way his sons were treated before the draft, and I think that's a mistake. Bill Simmons and Pablo Torre seem to be at war with each other over Bill Belichick. We'll talk about that. Stefon Diggs and Cardi B continue their strip club tour across the East and West Coast and wherever strip clubs or anywhere. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit about that. And on the Harmony channel, we'll react. We'll get, who did I invite to the Harmony? Oh, Kevin. Anthony, Virgil, and Kevin will be here. And we'll talk about what's going on in terms of all this gay stuff in sports and what's going on in American culture. We'll get a more biblical discussion with those guys on the Harmony channel at the end of the show. And we'll talk about the new head coach of the New York Jets, someone I'm rooting for, Aaron Glenn. He's introduced Bible study to the New York Jets, and I love it. That's something like Joe Gibbs was a big part of when he built the Washington Redskins into a dynasty, and throughout his coaching and even his career in NASCAR, Aaron Glenn doing that as well. So we'll talk about those things. But we will start with the discussion about what's going on in the sports world. But before we do any of that, I have to offer up a the most sincere thank you to our friends over at Omaha Steaks. They've jumped on board with the show, and I got to say, I love these guys. Today, I just sent Tiffany to my house. She's meeting my maids over there, and I was like, hopefully, Tiffany, when you get there, my latest shipment from Omaha Steak will arrive, because I have fallen in love with these guys. Fallen in love. They're skinless, boneless chicken breast. One of the healthiest things you can eat. It tastes phenomenal. Their tenderloin steaks, had it last night, tastes phenomenal. It's packaged and brought to you in a very healthy way and just not an oversized portion. This stuff is phenomenal. I hate to admit this, and I got to say this. They got this dessert called apple tart, cinnamon, whatever. Incredible. I did not, when I re-up, they sent me those complimentary. When my re-up comes today, I did not re-up, but for those of you that aren't fighting the battle of the bulge, get their desserts. They originally sent me these steak cut seasoned fries. Awesome. I didn't re-up there. I re-upped all with protein, from the fish to the chicken to the steak to the burgers. I got this big shipment of protein that should be waiting at my doorstep, or hopefully Tiffany and my maids bring it into my house when I get home. Anyway, my freezer is going to be stocked to the brim with Omaha steak. For those of you that have a father to please, they got a Father's Day special going on right now that's an amazing steak experience. Anyway, I cannot more fully recommend that you invest in Omaha Steaks, that you introduce this to you and your family, the food, the protein, all the desserts, the French fries, it's all amazing. Couldn't be a more sincere endorsement than the one that's coming from me, because this shipment I think that's going to hit my door is about $800 worth of Omaha Steaks hitting my door today, and so I should be set for at least the next 2 or 3 days, I think, with that $800 shipment.
That sounds right.
I'm sorry, 2 or 3 months. Did I say days? I meant months. I should be set for the next 2 or 3 months with this shipment that's about to hit my door. So let me get to the, isn't there a discount code here? Yeah. Let's go to visit omahasteaks.com, use my promo code FEARLESS at checkout. That'll get you a $35 off. I used this myself last week when I ordered this. I think it taken about 7 to 8 days for the shipment to arrive because my shipment was so large. But I used my promo code myself, FEARLESS. It'll get you $35 at checkout. Go to the site for all the details, omahasteaks.com. These guys love me. I love them. They love Fearless. They make this show possible. Gentlemen and ladies, visit Omaha Steaks. It's a great way to support me in this show. All right, let's get into today's show so Steve Kim doesn't get upset with me for making him wait. I want to start with our theme today is Over the Rainbow, because it feels like to me, and it feels like to others, like a lot of corporate America is over the rainbow. I think I saw this. Do we have this, Justin? I think I saw this tweet from Benny Johnson earlier this week, or at the beginning of this week, where Benny Johnson pointed out, the social media influence pointed out, like, culture is changing. For the past several years, thousands of major corporations rushed to change their logos at 12:01 a.m. on June 1st for Pride Month. This year, it's really hard to find a Fortune 500 corporation engaging in the ritual. Here are some examples. Nature, and he posts, so you can see this visually if you can't, but he posts all these different corporations, what they did in 2024 as opposed to what they're doing right now, and it is completely different. Last year in 2024, everybody changed their logo to something woke and prideful and some rainbow. This year, everybody's got their logos the same, normal. They're not bowing their head, bending the knee to the LGBTQ Alphabet Mafia. But in the sports world, this isn't so true, particularly in the National Football League. And particularly in a lot of these, I think in Major League Baseball, the Texas Rangers are the only team not having a Pride Night, not bending their knee to this whole satanic gay ritual that everybody does. But in the National Football League, which is my sport, I'm a football person, the NFL had been most attached to a biblical worldview and traditional conservative values. Well, it just seems like it's business as usual. Everybody's out there bending their knee, including, I saw someone, this is the XXXY Athletics. They pointed out, like, look at the New England Patriots here. They've turned the inside of their stadium or whatever with this whole pride flag. And XXY, don't go back, let me read it. XXY says, Patriots, like the NFL in general, can't be bothered to utter so much as a word on behalf of female athletes. Powerful sports institutions turn a blind eye, but never miss a chance to signal their virtue. And what she's talking about and what they're talking about is that you have men and boys all over the country in these high school sports. The New York Post did a great story, a big, long takedown and showing all these different states where boys are competing against girls and high school athletes. I think right now we got going on in Oregon and California and another one of these woke states, these state championships in track and field, and these gender dysphoric men are running around competing against little girls. And you would think this is where the National Football League and the NBA and Major League Baseball and the WNBA would be loud and proud about, hey, protect these spaces for women. People with XY chromosomes, we have leagues for you to compete in. We have spaces for you to compete athletically. There's no reason for you to be jumping over into the XX space to be competing. We have girls and boys sports. What's the problem with that? If anybody knows the physical advantages that men hold over women and people with XY chromosomes hold over XX chromosome people, and I believe I have that right. Women are XX. Help me out. This is why TJ's here.
Yes.
Improve the IQ of myself and the show. But anyway, I know I'm right about this. And so we have these designations and leagues, and nobody knows better than men. And this is a lesson you should learn, and boys, at a very young age. For me, and I don't even know, do they still play dodgeball in grade school and recess and things? Do they still play kickball and all that? Because I was a terrorist as a kid as it relates to dodgeball and kickball. If there was a kickball and dodgeball All-American team, I would have been first team All-American. I was a big old kid. I was super athletic, particularly as big as I was, and it was damn near illegal for me to play against girls because I could hurt them. I hate to say this, but we played co-ed kickball as kids. And I'm telling you, this is in, I forget Tara's last name, but I believe this is in 4th or 5th grade. We're out at recess, or we're in gym class. We're in gym class, and we're playing kickball outside. And this is probably the greatest athletic feat of my lifetime. I'm in the outfield. Did y'all play, you know kickball?
Of course.
Okay. I didn't know if they aged it out. But anyway, I'm out in the outfield. The ball comes to me, and Tara is rounding third, headed for home, and I'm way out in the outfield. And I'm talking about, I laced the ball, took her legs out as she's trying to cross. She hits her head on the concrete. It was dangerous. And they're like, hey, man, we can't let Whitlock play kickball with the girls anymore. This guy, he's too good and he's dangerous. You should all learn this. And we all do. It's like, well, I'm a boy. She's a girl. We shouldn't be competing against each other. It's dangerous. But men in these male leagues, silent on all of this. And this conversation as it relates to the National Football League and all the messaging that put out, the NFL is gay, football is gay. And Dez Bryant reacted to this. Dez Bryant, the former Cowboys wide receiver, former NFL wide receiver. Let's first play the NFL is gay. It's kind of, do we have the NFL? Yeah, the NFL football is gay promo. It's kind of old, but Dez reacted to it again yesterday, as well he should, because this insanity, he's like, the entire corporate America is going one direction, and he's looking at the National Football League and these other sports leagues double down and lean in to this rainbow garbage. And Dez is bothered by it. But let's first play the NFL is gay or football is gay promo. Play the clip. What are we doing? It's an obvious question. What are we doing? Dez Bryant, and I salute him. Aaron Rodgers last week, he had a comment. But first, let me repeat Dez Bryant's comments over Twitter. Football is gay. Football is queer. Football is transgender. These are wild statements to make. Excuse my silliness. I'm going to proudly tell my boys football is none of these things. I have nothing against gays, but this is far from right. This is common sense. And Dez goes on to say, look, there are gay players in the NFL, but forcing it in people's faces, especially children, can send the wrong message. Football is a real community like the gay community. Imagine telling gays they have to advocate for straight people. They probably would have a problem. This is Dez Bryant, just common sense, emoting and flowing from his Twitter feed. Aaron Rodgers, last week, had a comment about this whole trans women thing. This is all just common sense. Let's play Aaron Rodgers' shot number 3.
The trans women movement is actually anti-woman.
100%, especially when it comes to sports. 100%.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sports. Yeah. You're not seeing trans men dominating anything.
No,
it's because there's a biological difference.
Well, it's also a problem because if you're a trans man, now you have to take testosterone, which is banned. You can't take it.
That's
so
true.
are you going to let them take it, and you won't let older athletes take it? That sounds crazy.
Because it is. That is Aaron Rodgers and Joe Rogan making complete common sense. And because I'm a football guy, primarily, when it's not WNBA season. Because I'm a football guy. This NFL thing makes no sense, but I want to explain it to you why it does make sense, and I want to connect it to the conversation we were having yesterday about Glenn Greenwald. These things are all connected. And again, this is why I love to talk about sports, because you can understand the rest of the world. We're living in the era and the age of blackmail. And maybe we've always lived in the era and age of blackmail. But now everyone and even institutions are being blackmailed. T.J. Moe asked me this morning when we were talking about today's show, like, hey, what do you, it was either T.J. or it was John Hanley, but I can't remember. Hey, what do you think is driving this, the NFL? And I was like, well, they've been blackmailed. And they have. And many of you, when I say this, you go, oh, there you go with your tinfoil hat, you conspiracy theorist, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. You're a joke, Whitlock. I'm also right. The NFL has been blackmailed by the concussion controversy. The manufactured concussion controversy has Roger Goodell and the National Football League and their ownership group on their knees. The mainstream legacy media drove this concussion narrative and focused all this attention on head injuries in the National Football League as a way of pressuring the NFL, which is the leader of all American sports, which is the tastemaker for all of American sports, which everybody plays follow the leader as it relates to the NFL. And so if they can leverage the NFL to adopt all the woke, leftist, Marxist agenda and messaging, how can we get the NFL on board with Black Lives Matter? How can we get the NFL on board with the LGBTQIA+ silent P Alphabet Mafia? We keep distorting and focusing in on concussions in the media, and then we offer them, hey, we'll back off the concussion conversation. We know we've created and manufactured this whole deal. We'll back off of it if you'll hop on board with the BLM, LGBTQIA+, silent P Alphabet Mafia. And that's what has happened. In order for the media to quit focusing on, oh, look at these hitters, look at these hard hits. They've been having hard hits in football and in life, in boxing, in all these male competitive combat sports forever. They chose to focus on it as a way of leveraging and pressuring and blackmailing the NFL to get on board with the rest of the Marxist marketing. It's worked. You'll never get me, and I've I have people that I know that played football and seem to be suffering from some sort of head-related trauma issues. And I say seem to be. But you'll never get me on board with this whole CTE deal. Well, we can't diagnose it until you die. Once you die, then we can look at your brain and tell you if you have CTE. And every single person we look at that played football that dies, we then diagnose them with CTE. I believe the doctor, and I can't think of his name, but I watched the Will Smith movie, whatever the doctor's name is. I believe they chose, and I'm sorry for saying this, but it's just factual. It's my opinion. It's my honest opinion. They chose a black African doctor so that if you question the CTE discovery, you could then be accused of racism. This whole CTE thing is a hoax, in my opinion. Just my opinion. I don't have the facts to prove it, but it's my opinion. Men have been playing football, a much less safe version of football, for 100 years. And it wasn't until the last 20, 30 years that we discovered that all of them have CTE and they're all going to die this horrible CTE death. And it doesn't matter that Terry Bradshaw is sitting on TV in his 70s, having played in one of the most violent eras in the National Football League in the history of football, but he's in his late, mid-70s, still on TV talking football. Troy Aikman's had a dozen concussions. He's still on TV talking football. All these people, all these guys, all these old guys, from Dick Butkus, didn't he just pass away? But any of these guys that played football in these most violent eras. Jim Brown, friend of mine, died in his 80s, had a sharp mind all the way up until his death. But everybody's got CTE that played football, and football is the most dangerous sport. And they did it to stir up enough public backlash that former NFL players who took the bait, and it's just human nature. They're looking at all the money the current players are making now, and they're jealous. And they figured out, you know what, if we sue over this CTE stuff, we can get a piece of this change that we missed out on. And so they damaged the NFL by suing over this CTE stuff, getting millions of dollars and more money because they feel entitled. They're no different. Again, this entitlement, victim mentality has even affected football players. And I pointed this out years ago when people were all, reparations, they shouldn't have reparations, and only black people want reparations. I said, what about these former NFL players? They want reparations. Hey, we built the NFL. Oh, who says we built America? Oh, black people say that. Oh, we built America and we're owed X, Y, and Z. What did former NFL players say? Oh, we built the NFL and we're owed X, Y, and Z. And don't you understand the suffering we've gone through with CTE? We're owed millions of dollars. And so they sued, and all this public sentiment was on their side, and they won their lawsuit, or they won a settlement from the NFL. But the media, if the NFL didn't bend over for the Alphabet Mafia, everything the New York Times and the legacy media would be talking about, ESPN would be concussions. And eventually, because they know they've soured some people on even watching the National Football League, and they've certainly soured them on watching real football. People now don't want to see the hard hits. I'm talking about, it's even affected me. I don't enjoy the hard hits the way that I used to. You can call that progress. I call it I don't know. I've fallen for the programming. I much preferred when ESPN and Tom Jackson and those jacked up, and Chris Carter would talk about who got jacked up. I used to live and operate, and I've been jacked up. I can still remember linebacker, I don't know if he's watching right now, but Pat Quigley Was a great linebacker at Carmel High School, played some college football, a couple of different places. But Pat Quigley jacked me up as a junior in high school on a punt return, knocked me completely off my feet, and I still remember the hit to this day. It was fun. It was a challenge. It's what men and boys did. We took incredible risks because we're a little bit stupid and we're risk takers. But that's what made America great. That's what made America rugged. There's risk you have to be willing to take, even stupid risk. I miss the days of Evel Knievel. But the NFL and Roger Goodell, they're leveraged, they've been blackmailed, and they've fallen, and that's why the National Football League is out of step with the rest of corporate America. There are those of us that believe, there are people out here arguing now, hey, we're winning. Look, corporate America is backing away from the Pride deal. But I'm not sure if we're winning because the strongest influence in American culture is sports and live football and televised live sports. And in those events, in that industry that has incredible influence over American culture, the gays are winning. The Marxists are winning. And so they're letting Target and other corporate spaces dial it back while they're forcing the sports world and men, the hub of masculinity in American culture has been men competing in sports. And they've overtaken that, and they're letting little boys and little boys that want to be girls overrun women's athletics. I'm not sure if we're winning. We're engaged in the fight. We're winning in certain places, but in the sports world, we're losing. TJ, before we get to Steve Kim, do you have a thought?
Yes. So I don't know if winning is probably the wrong categorization. What we're doing is what you said at the end. We're actually showing up for a change, because what we did was get absolutely steamrolled for 4 years. We got steamrolled through all the Obama years when all the setup was happening. It continued on because people were asleep at the wheel during the Trump years, and then we got absolutely destroyed during the Biden years.
Let me stop you, and just not stop you, but ask for a little, because you're young, and you attach it to the Obama years. But as we looked up this morning, and we've talked about previously on this show, Bill Clinton started Pride Month. Mm-hmm. This has been going on a lot longer than just Obama.
True. Yes. So 99 is when it officially became the Pride Month. Gay marriage didn't become legal until 2013, I think.
Yeah.
And so that is when I think we started to really see it in the culture. In 1999, nobody can remember. I mean, I was
slippery slope, TJ.
I get it, but also
particularly for those of us with a biblical, we're celebrating gayness for a month.
I know.
That's an indication, like, hey, we've lost the plot.
Well, no question about it. And this is what I'm saying. And so let's take it back to where you're talking about. Let's say it actually started in 1999. I think it took root in the Obama years. But let's say that the idea started in sort of the, remember, Bill Clinton once upon a time talked about abortion safe, legal, and rare. And look, now it's shout your abortion. So, okay, it started here. That this is when the seeds were. But back then, everybody just assumed, hey, let people do their own stuff, and what happens in their bedroom, all the Glenn Greenwald comments.
I mean, I hate to crack these kind of jokes with you here, but again, that sounds like just the tip. The tip is actually going to lead to full insertion.
Would you agree that the first time anyone even begun the fight was like 2022? 2021 maybe? Who showed up and was actually fighting? Not single people. Because you've been shouting for a while, Matt Walsh's been shouting for a while. Who actually showed up as a group to fight in any real way before 2021?
Well,
I don't think it happened. So we're like 3-4 years into a fight, is what I'm saying. And if John Root is correct, because I saw him tweeting out, there's like 10 NFL teams that didn't send out a tweet about
Kansas City Chiefs are one of them. Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Yes.
And the Hunt
I
family.
think the Cowboys are one of them.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Jerry Jones.
That would have been unthinkable 3 years ago, when the NFL was literally running commercials that you just saw here. The NFL is gay. The NFL is trans. Everybody was the New England Patriots. It was a flag that keeps changing because it has to be inclusive of everything. every 5 minutes they have to add new things because somebody else complains about their flag. I'm just telling you, it's not that we're winning. It's that we're actually engaged in the fight for the first time and have an opportunity to win, because you can't win a fight that you're not engaged in.
I agree, and I'll say this about from Dez Bryant to Aaron Rodgers, the fact that they're even talking about it is a sign of progress, because there had been no talk from athletes. Everybody's been scared to death. What do you mean? Michael Sam, he's the greatest thing in the world, and of course he's got to come to the NFL. And no one can say, hey man, this isn't what we're about. We're playing football here. We're not promoting a sexual lifestyle.
Did I ever give you because I was with the Rams in training camp that year when Michael Sam came. Did I ever tell you the theory of the people in the locker room? And remember, I played with Michael Sam in college, so for anybody who listening didn't know that. The theory, because Jeff Fisher was on the competition committee, and this is 2014. The theory is they got to the 7th round, and he was SEC Defensive Player of the Year, and he had a bunch of sacks, but he didn't have any sort of flexibility. He wasn't going to be a dominant NFL player. Everybody saw it, except for you have this gay movement coming and hitting you right in the face. And so the theory from people high up on the team, captains, and the discussion in the locker room that they say they knew was Jeff Fisher went to the NFL office and said, I will make you a deal. I don't want anything to do with Hard Knocks. If you can promise me I won't be on Hard Knocks, I will save you from this disastrous, embarrassing campaign of not drafting the gay guy, and it's going to be your worst nightmare. I will draft him. And that is how Michael Sam got on the Rams.
Because he didn't want to be on Hard Knocks.
Because he did not want to be on Hard Knocks. He was on the competition committee. He had been around, obviously, a long time, Jeff Fisher, and said, that's a theory. Never heard anything, concrete for anybody, but that is from people who would know and had been on that team for a long time.
I do think I could see the Hard Knocks thing being a part of it, but he's got a bigger chip than to just settle for not being on Hard Knocks. By taking that bullet and taking Michael Sam, he should get more in return than not just appearing on Hard Knocks.
Probably gave him some job security.
That's what yes. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, is I get to keep my job. I'll get, because I can't remember when the shine started coming off of Jeff Fisher, but it wasn't around that time that he had kind of lost a little of his luster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was, listen, everybody knew the culture difference from going from New England and then the next year standing in the Rams locker room. Everybody just knew, hey, this is Mr. 7 and 9.
Yes. And so some job security. But yeah, I could definitely see that. I think those type deals are made all the time. And, I've pointed it out. And Steve, I'm coming to you. We're going to wrap up here, and we're going to bring Steve Kim into the conversation. But I've reported and talked about, and this is an NBA example, but the NBA used to, there was a series of NBA players that would become the president of the Players Association and the NBA Players Association. And in order to sell out the union during their contract negotiations, those players would then be promised roles, head coaching positions in the National Basketball Association. And I can't remember that. There was a great example I'm talking about. If people really want to understand why I'm hated by these leagues, it's like, because I called out, and I can't remember I think the guy may have ended up being the Pistons coach for a while, but he was the head of the Players Association, and then for no reason he had like a 3, 4, 5 year stint as an NBA head coach. And I pointed out there was a pattern of this, and it's why they hate Isaiah Thomas, because they couldn't control him when he was an NBA player and the head of the Players Association, and David Stern wanted to destroy Isaiah Thomas post-career. But yeah, they cut deals all the time to get what they want done with coaches, players, whatever. Anyway, Steve, let me tell you all about the latest project on Blaze TV that you all can enjoy. It's about the BLM riots. It's an explosive investigation You really need to see it. It's been 5 years since George Floyd's riots turned Minneapolis upside down. And now, for the first time ever, 3 active duty Minneapolis police officers are speaking on camera anonymously about all the corruption and BS they've seen. These guys were on the front lines when the 3rd precinct was abandoned and burned. They're still on the job, still in uniform. And what they reveal about Derek Chauvin, Governor Tim Walz, and the breakdown of law and order in that city is absolutely jaw-dropping. They say Derek Chauvin was railroaded, that Walz completely failed them, and that they're risking their lives every day in a city that's turned its back on them. You can watch the first 10 minutes for free right now on YouTube. Just search Blaze TV, Minneapolis. But to see the full, unfiltered investigation, you've got to be a Blaze TV subscriber. Head over to fearlessmission.com and get $20 off your subscription. Sign up, support unrelenting journalism, and see what the media won't show you. Best thing you can do for me, you, and this show is go to fearlessmission.com, become a subscriber. You can watch this thing on the BLM rides. You can support everything that I'm doing, everything we're doing here at the Blaze. And you can support even Steve Kim, the Korean co-cell, who's next.
Lord, it's a damn shame what the NFL has turned to for fans like me and fans like you. Wish I could just wake up in Patriots red, white, and blue, but I can't. This football nightmare's true. Living in a madden world with Lombardi's soul. These cowards bound to feminists, Lord knows they all just want to wear pantyhose and control what you think. Want to vex you and mask you, and they don't think we know that they drink Bud Light too. Cause these players don't hit, might as well have limp wrists. Cause of these cowards bowing down to feminists. I've been selling my stuff, hustling eBay, PlayStation car parts for little or no pay.
Yeah, 모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Reason that I'm back is to feed you raps I see that you are 배불러 So fly
All right, welcome back. The Korean co-cell joining us, Steve Kim. Welcome back to the show. Do you have a theory, Steve, or what do you think of my theory about why the NFL isn't over the rainbow?
Well, they seem to be a little bit, but not as much. But I think that they mirror American society and culture in the sense that the further we get away from 2020, little by little, not all at one time, but gradually, people and corporations are pulling away from this blind allegiance, almost this forced allegiance at gunpoint to this whole particular movement. And then I also think it helps that individuals like Dez Bryant are actually speaking out. Because even 4 years ago, if he would have done it even as a retired ball player, he would have been putting himself at a lot of risk. And I will say one thing about Dez, though. He does not rely on football. He's not trying to get a broadcasting job. He's not trying to go to ESPN. I believe he's actually done some good stuff with his money where he doesn't ever need to go into that world and be a part of that indoctrination process.
Peter, did you react? What do you think of my theory about why the NFL is not over the rainbow? Did you ever respond to that?
No, I think it's a good theory. There's an alternative theory that I would suggest, in that you can't ever underestimate arrogance. And the NFL is so arrogant that they think no one will ever leave them, and it doesn't matter. And there's this other group that they can go after, and their goal is just to have, what are they, $14 billion a year now? They want to get it to 20. I don't know what the numbers are.
Much more bigger than that, I think. The NFL is like a $40, $50 billion business.
Okay, well, whatever it is, their goal is just, hey, we got to reach the unreachable population. We have everybody else.
I buy part of that theory in terms of they reach out to Taylor Swift fans and women. They reach out to the gay. It's like the NFL just wants everybody and to justify the money and all that. And so maybe it is just outreach in their mind. They're like Sesame Street and everybody else that, it does, all genders, sexualities, all, maybe that's just it. Maybe it's just greed.
23 billion is where they're at. And I do think I remember I pulled 12 and 14 from probably 10 years ago. And they have these goals and they've capped out at the you and me's of the world are not consuming this new product. We're not going to do it. The ones that they haven't tapped out. There are some people who would otherwise like football and love the physicality, and they're all watching UFC. They're not coming to watch this new garbage. So they got to find a new audience.
Steve, do you have less enthusiasm for the NFL, this softer version?
When it comes to the NFL, yes, I'm still pretty much into college football. But here's the interesting thing about you talk about outreach. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that particular community that they are doing the outreach to less than 1% of the American population? I mean, who are you reaching out to? And what's the next step? We're going to reach out to pedophiles because everybody has their preferences. I mean, here's the danger. And you talk about the, I don't want to say the ever-expanding audience of the National Football League, because I think TJ has a point. I think it has capped out to a certain degree. But now that they are going to other platforms, other networks, you have to pay certain packages to watch certain games. And I believe that there's even talk of putting certain games or even the Super Bowl on pay-per-view. You're going to erode your audience over time. I saw this with boxing. There was a period in American history when boxing was probably the most important sport along with horse racing. Somewhere around the late 70s to early to mid 80s, they started going to premium cable. Then they relied on pay-per-view to show their biggest events. And it didn't happen immediately, but it did happen. Much like the decline of the newspaper business, it was gradual and then it was sudden in terms of the decline. So, yeah, I mean, the National Football League, I watch it because I have to. We cover it. I still like the game of football, but I would be dishonest if I said my passion for the overall sport is what it was, let's say, 20, 25 years ago.
It's at 7.6% in the entire U.S. now and 20% of Gen Z.
Gay. Is what
Gay.
we're talking about, yeah.
And so
geez.
my point is it's coming. The NFL sees it's coming, and they're trying to get a piece of it.
Yeah, and I always multiply that in terms of, okay, it's 7% of the population, but if it's your brother, sister, son, daughter, now you become an ally of the LGBTQ. Most people go that route. And so that to me is why they're promoting the whole gay agenda and trying to confuse kids at an earlier age, try to get them to, because once you experiment with gayness, it's like experimenting with herpes. I'm sorry, but it doesn't go away. Yeah. And so once you experiment with it, then in your mind, well, I'm bisexual or I'm gay. I think it's a devious plot. Get kids involved with sex well before their brains are ready for it, and make them think they're bisexual at 7, 8, 9 years old. And now you got them for life, and now you got their parents and their grandmamas and all. There's some pull on them. It's anyway. I want to keep it moving before I go too far with that topic. Before my thoughts get ahead of what I really want to say, I want to move on to Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders, because Deion, Steve, keeps talking about Shedeur, and I actually think it's a mistake. He keeps whining and complaining. Here he is saying that he was hurt by what happened to Shedeur and Shiloh basically in the draft, but let's play the clip.
I know it was a lot of rumors about the next level, and I can't see that. Yeah. I can't see the next level, and I think a couple people who may have taken shots at my kids, they were afraid that I would go. That's where the shots came from. All you got to do is just sit back and listen. People don't want to do that. They want to create these narratives and create these stories and then attach them to a kid that ain't never done nothing wrong.
Yeah. How does that make you feel when you see your colleagues or your peers going in on you, man? Like, how does that make you feel?
No idea, man. You have no idea. We've always been in front of the camera, so they know how to navigate. They know how to handle themselves.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna catch them in no foolery and no mess. You're not. When you sit up there and say something like, he went in a meeting unprepared, like, dude, Shedeur Sanders, who's had 6 different coordinators, who has still functioned and went up, leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're gonna tell me
Every situation.
You're gonna tell me he had on headphones?
So you a dog, your kid's a dog, and dogs gonna always rise to the top. You know what I mean? That's what I believe. You know what I mean? Then we talking about
it did hurt. The Bible says God uses the foolish things to confound the wise. So it was some foolish stuff that went on, but you know what? That gave them something that they needed.
So he thinks his sons have been inspired at some. I think later on he compared it to Tom Brady himself. I think Deion's making a gigantic mistake just talking about this. If I'm an NFL, if I'm the Browns organization or anybody, I'm just like, hey man, it's good that your son has been humbled. Quit making excuses and rationalizations for him. I think Deion's making a mistake, Steve.
After listening to that, Jason, there's nothing more I want right now in the world of sports for the Giants to release that interview footage. In fact, I'd look forward to that more than getting the complete unedited copy of the Zapruder film. That interview right there, Jason, actually shows why teams may have shied away from the whole Sanders experience. They don't want to be second-guessed. They don't want everything out there to become a viral moment, questioning the team's decisions, who they're surrounding Shedeur with, what type of system they're running, the coaching he's receiving, the coordinator he's getting, and who they're drafting. They don't want it. I believe at this point, and again, I'm not the father, but you asked, so I'll answer the question. Coach Sanders, Deion Sanders, would be better off just not saying anything and letting Shedeur go on with his professional career at this point.
I'm hung up on his use of the Bible verse. God chose foolish things to confound the wise, and he's acting as though he's the wise one. Like, could you think for a second, Deion, that everybody else might be the wise one and you're the foolish one confounding them? That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's like, if you're the one who's acting a certain way, and you can't blame racism, good for him for not trying, because Cam Ward went number 1, they're half the NFL's black quarterbacks. And so, like, at some point, aren't the NFL teams saying, Deion, if you lack such unbelievable self-awareness and you've passed this on to your child, that's like the number 1 thing you need in a quarterback, self-awareness. And so this is a genetic trait in the Sanders family. I haven't seen it in Shiloh either. Never heard of Sanders say anything with any amount of self-awareness. Perhaps Deion is the one who doesn't have it, and these NFL teams want nothing to do with the entire Sanders family.
I don't blame them because this is the mistake I believe Deion's making, and I'm not a father. TJ, you are, so I'll throw this in your lap first. But you raise up and develop and nurture a child, particularly a young man, and then you push them out of the nest and go stand on your own 2 feet, go fly. I've taught you how to fly. I've taught you how to hunt. I've taught you how to feed yourself. Go start your own family. And so he's not letting Shedeur out of the nest. He wants to go fly along right with him. And so, again, just leave it alone. I'll give an example, and I hope I do this fairly and without being, I don't want to betray a confidant or a lifelong friend, but NFL people during Jeff George's career were, and I'm telling Jeff's mother and father and brothers are some of the greatest human beings I've ever met, Jeff George. But there was a concern that, like, his family's too close in terms of there are things we're going to say to him, and we don't want to be we don't want to be second guessed by his family, and there's just like a fine line. His parents, I'm telling you, are tremendous, but the perception was that things would go bad I'm talking about during his Colts career, his first tenure. Things would go bad. He would then come out of the locker room and his family would be there and they would be telling him things that wouldn't cause him to evaluate himself. He would be evaluating his teammates. And that's what ended up spoiling the relationship with the Colts. And this is why when he went to Oakland, he had great success. And when he went to the Minnesota, he had great success because he was more out on his own than when he was in Indianapolis, in his hometown, family, friends, and all the people very close to him. We were blinded. And so his feedback was never forcing him towards self-evaluation. It was towards the Colts don't have this, the Colts don't have that. And that's what I think people fear about Deion.
Deion just showed it in that interview. Shedeur Sanders showing up to a meeting unprepared? This guy's had 6 offensive coordinators and rose his level every time. It's like, so no personal accountability. He couldn't have possibly done anything wrong. He couldn't have had any sort of misstep with the Giants. He didn't even talk about the headphones. What if he just went in and blew the interview? He couldn't have done that because he had 6 different offensive coordinators, right, Deion? So I agree with that. I mean, dads, good, dads that want their kids to grow up and be able to stand on their own 2 feet, let their kids go do things. And this is a silly story, but it's something dumb that I did with my 2-year-old this week. He's got a little bike that doesn't have pedals. That's how they learn to, it's like a balance bike. And he wasn't wearing a helmet, and I don't care, he'll be fine. But our driveway comes downhill a fair bit. And so he's coming down the hill way too fast, lets his feet up, and right as he's coming down the hill, my wife pops out. She's like, he should have a helmet on. Crashed right into the ground into my car. Hey, he's fine. You just teach him how to tough it up. Like, you're good. Go do something. You knew better, should have had your helmet on, didn't have your shoes on, scraped up his knees, didn't really hit his head too much, but it's like, you just let him go fall and crash him, and then you dust him off when you get up. You don't defend him. You teach them how and why that was stupid and that you knew better. So Shedeur comes back. You don't have to answer questions in front of the audience and go do podcasts. You go back to Shedeur and say, what did we learn? Okay, we blew it, but you still got a chance here. You are on a team in the NFL. You blew that, we blew that, maybe I didn't give you the guidance, and you go do it. So you just crashed your bike, and now let's get up together and figure out how not to do that again. But they don't do it. They just defend it and act like the crash never happened.
Steve?
Jason, I see this dynamic a lot in boxing where the fathers are now not only just the trainers, they are now managing and almost becoming the de facto promoter in a lot of ways outside of putting up the actual money and putting up the actual events. And it's maddening. I think there's not a lot of self-reflection. There's not a lot of truth-telling. Going back to Jeff George and his family involvement, Jason, I'm sure you remember this. He was the #1 player in high school. You were his teammate. You were his Orlando Pace. I remember reading stories about him in Sports Illustrated. So he ends up going to Purdue. And the story that I'll never forget is he gets injured in his freshman year. It's a bad injury. And he got lampooned for years because his mother came out of the stands onto the field. Now, nowadays, I don't think people would look at it as being such a bad thing. I actually have seen that once in a while. But in 1986, which I think was his true freshman year, it was almost taboo for a parent, especially a mom, to come onto the field and be over his son. And for a long time, there was a stigma that, nah, this ain't going to work. Like this is too much of a mama's boy. So things have certainly changed, but maybe they haven't changed that much at all.
Steve, that's a story that I remember well, obviously. And so this is, again, where I go back to Jeff George had so much talent and wanted, well-intentioned. He chose Purdue because he wanted to help his home state team. He wanted to be close to his family. And it turned out well-intentioned, but it turned out to be the wrong thing. Purdue didn't have the right talent to surround him, and his actual family, well-intentioned. I'm talking about Jeff George's mother, Judy, is one of the greatest human beings. She's an angel in heaven right now. Trust me, this woman's faith in God and just her intentions, but just too close. You got to let the kids out of the nest, and particularly when they have that much talent. And Deion, and so Deion is making that mistake. His son, for the first time, is playing football away from Deion, and Deion's trying to stay attached, and it's actually harming his son and driving way too much conversation. This whole second guessing, what it does is exactly where you started the conversation. Man, do I want to see that Giants tape. We were kind of forgetting and moving past that.
Yeah.
He's drawn more interest in it and more conversation around it. It's a mistake. You got to let these kids out of the nest. As TJ says, let them fall and bump their heads. They'll get back up. You've put the right things in them. They'll get back up and handle it themselves. Anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone, and I want to move on to Steve. There's a media beef going on between Bill Simmons and Pablo Torre. Pablo's been getting a lot of attention for his insight and reporting around Bill Belichick and Bill Belichick's 24-year-old fiance or girlfriend. He's getting a lot of attention around that, Pablo is, for his reporting. And Bill Simmons, a lifelong Patriots fan, I'm sure has some sort of relationship with Bill Belichick, seems to have gotten a little defensive about it. Let's play the clip of Bill Simmons talking about Pablo Torre. And this is in the middle of an interview that really had nothing to do with Pablo Torre. Bill was making an analogy, and he takes a shot at Pablo Torre. Let's play the clip.
Pablo Torre would have done a long podcast about Leo Farnsworth trying to practice with the team and then done a media tour about it afterwards.
Guy, bro.
I've never seen anybody dying on the stupider story for a week and a half while pretending you're a journalist. What the fuck was that?
Whoa!
Seriously.
What the?
Oh, Belichick's dating a girl. Oh, let me do 9 shows about it.
I can't tell. Are you
settle the down?
If this was about Jeffrey Lurie, though,
What?
would you be like, we got to get Pablo
Because
Torre
that's
on the
their
pod?
Thing, right? Like, why are you
All
getting
right.
him?
All right. You don't need to do a media tour
It was
about
a story
fucking
that
podcast.
everybody was talking
That's
about.
fine.
To be fair,
Maybe do 2 shows about
Yeah.
it.
All right, so that's Bill taking a shot at Pablo Torre. Here's Pablo Torre responding over Twitter. Dear @Bill Simmons, since you have such a strong public opinion about my work, I happen to have a few questions for you specifically. Unless you're afraid of Pablo finds out and someone just pretending to be a journalist, of course, thanks, Pablo. That appears to be Pablo inviting Bill Simmons to come on his show and to talk about it, which would be good for Pablo's show. And so Bill Simmons may respond like, here you are dining again on this story. But anyway, Steve, your thoughts, whose side you on here in this feud?
All right. There is no crouching tiger bias here. You know, I've had my criticisms of Pablo Torre and his politics and all. I don't get the criticism. Jason, this is a story. This has been very public. Ms. Jordan, what's-her-face, has not just been a partner. She's been made part of the UNC football staff. She's interjected herself in other parts of Bill Belichick's professional and commercial life. It is a story. Everyone is talking about it, okay? She's made herself very much seen. She's not just in the background. And Jason, you know this as a nationally renowned sports columnist in another life. When you would write a story, and before there was such thing as going viral, there was a buzz, such as your 2007 NBA All-Star Game column. You didn't call Oprah to be on it. You didn't put out a press release saying, hey, I'm going on tour. Didn't these outlets reach out to you, Jason? Am I wrong in this?
No. Yes, they did.
And so it's obvious to me, and I've become a very big fan of 98.5 Boston Sports Radio with Felger and Scott Zolak. This is a big deal to them. Pablo Torre is not just calling in on the regular line saying, hey, guys, I'm Pablo Torre. I'd like to. No. They are dedicating full segments to him because people care about it. So, Bill, you don't have to like it. I get it. You're a Boston guy. You're the guardian of all things New England. I get it. But it is a story, and people care about it. And I congratulate Pablo for the work he's done.
Let me play the other side, and not that I'm on Bill Simmons' side here, but I just want to give you some pushback. They're in a podcast talking about something completely unrelated to Bill Belichick. And I think it's about some TV show or movie, actually. It has nothing to do with Bill Belichick. And in the middle of some hour-long podcast, Bill Simmons does 90 seconds, a little bit of comedy, making fun of Pablo Torre. It's not like the podcast was about, here's Bill Simmons going after Pablo Torre. I do know the Bill Simmons, they pushed out over social media the clip of Bill attacking Pablo Torre, but it's just a passing shot, kind of harmless in my view. Then you have to take into effect, this is a Patriots super fan,
Right.
who definitely has a relationship with Michael Lombardi, who used to work for Bill with the Patriots and now works with him at North Carolina. So it shouldn't be all that surprising that Bill Simmons is on Team Belichick as it relates, and he wants less conversation about Jordan Hudson and Bill's sex life, personal life. So I just kind of take it as, hey, it's a little shot. People take shots, let it go. But now, having heard all of that, what do you say, Steve?
Well, I don't disagree, but I also think there's a part of it where Bill Simmons believes, look, Boston is my territory. I own that space. And maybe I don't want to say threatened because he's not really threatened, but maybe he's like, wait a minute, why is Pablo getting all this shine? I mean, Pablo's become a pretty significant name in that area based on the reporting that he has done. Also, another thing that I really figured out, and I didn't know this beforehand, I thought Bill Belichick was almost untouchable because of the 20-year run that he had. All those Super Bowls alongside Tom Brady. Jason, there is a lot of resentment from the media over the way he coached and handled the player personnel GM duties the last 3 years. I'm just telling you, I was surprised by it. There's no grace. They think Bill packed it in the last 3 years. These guys are incredibly critical of what went on from, let's say, the last year of Belichick to the last year of Tom Brady. So that's between 2020 to 2022, 23. So it's a story. And I do wonder, and there's no doubt, he's a Patriot super fan. He has relationships with people. However, putting all of that aside, that does not mean no one else should talk about it just because you don't like it.
I 1,000% agree with you that I tend to think, based off what you're hearing from Boston radio and what people very close are saying, like, how did this happen? How did the Patriots go from the best dynasty football team we've ever seen in Bill Belichick to hot garbage once Tom Brady left? And it can't just be, well, Tom Brady left and that explains everything. I think there are people that are saying, like, Belichick kind of packed it in once he fell in love with a 21-year-old. Mm-hmm. And he's let his smallest head drive his legacy in coaching right off a cliff. I think people believe that, and that's worthy of discussion, and it's why Pablo Torre's reporting, I think, is important, and I'm on Pablo's side. The last layer to this, Steve, and I'm going to let you in here in a second, TJ, but the last layer to this, Steve, that I want you to think about, and you'll be like, yes, you're right. Bill Simmons and Dan Le Batard, these are frenemies. These are people that on the surface pretend to have some respect and communicate with each other, but it's my belief they're actually hyper-competitive with each other. They are kind of similar, and keep Bill Simmons is my favorite sports columnist of all time. I'm not sure if anybody in the sports, maybe Bob, I don't want to say his last name, I don't want to get him in trouble, but Dan Le Batard was my best friend in the sports media business for a long time. And so I know both of these guys, know Dan the best, but I know both of these guys well, and they are more alike. They competed over who was going to have the most influence over John Skipper. And so I see this Meadowlark Media, Dan Le Batard, and Pablo Torre, and Bill Simmons and The Ringer as like Dan Le Batard's organization with this Bill Belichick is having some success with a topic that is in Bill Simmons' wheelhouse, and there's a little competitive jealousy here.
You're absolutely correct. I don't disagree with one word. This is the podcast version of Death Row Records versus Bad Boy. And right there was a little bit of a drive-by. I don't know if it was the Source Awards. I don't know who was Suge Knight talking about being all up in the videos. But yeah, there's rivalry. There's no doubt about it that if Bill Simmons was aligned with Pablo, I wonder if Pablo would be allowed to do that story. But let's say, putting all of that aside, if they were aligned with the same company, Bill Simmons would be saying, man, great job by Pablo. He's getting out there. He's going viral. He has dominated this story. But because they're on the opposite end, and Simmons is a huge Patriot fan with some relationships, he's going to be very defensive about it. A lot of this is related to human nature.
But TJ, before you jump in, I just want to make one last clarifying point, just so that Bill Simmons, my favorite sports columnist of all time, the guy, hilarious, insightful. I read the book of basketball, which is one of the longest books I ever read other than maybe Roots. I read it overnight. I mean, I just went on a jihad for like 16 straight hours and did nothing but read his book of basketball. Dan Le Batard is the most talented sports columnist I've ever known. And his work was incredible, beautiful writer, thinker, blah, blah, blah. I just want to put that in clarity. Now, I will add, I was the best sports writer I've ever read. But anyway, I just want to, now TJ, go ahead.
I have nothing of value to add to the conversation that you two just had, other than to say that Pablo Torre was one half of the worst show ever televised in High Noon.
That is true.
And so I'm glad he's finally doing something to contribute to society now.
High Noon.
It is, and listen, and it's almost like they don't want Pablo to get off the ground, but he has, with this Belichick story, elevated himself and his podcast. It's unfortunate that, because I've actually taken a look and I'm like, what's he doing with Katie Nolan? Why, what's all this other garbage around him? But hats off to Pablo, Dan, Meadowlark Media. Pablo does seem to be doing a great job with this Belichick story, and I'm glad. I've never disliked Pablo. I really haven't. I do think there's talent there. I think that, again, these guys focus so much on being well-liked that they lose, hey, I'm a journalist. I'm not here to be well-liked. Yeah, well, that's what turns them into being woke, is they want to be well-liked. And so but this guy actually has talent, but he wanted to be in with the in crowd and be liked and all that. So anyway, Pablo, good job. Bill, don't be petty, don't be jealous. Let Pablo have some success. You've made enough money. Let Pablo make some. Anyway, that's my ruling on that. Finally, Steve, and I don't know if I don't know if this is your area of expertise, but Stefon Diggs and Cardi B. Looks like they're hanging out in a strip club.
Lovely couple.
He's getting, lovely. Let's go with, don't we have him at the strip club with Cardi B, smacking her on the back of the rear end? Yeah, this stuff. TJ, close your eyes. Yep. I'm telling you, I saw this, and I'm just sitting there, and I know this isn't your area. I'm going to bring Shemeka on to talk about it here in a second, but Stefon Diggs is multimillionaire, NFL star athlete, in great shape. What's he doing here with Cardi B? And, part of me just talking it out loud, I'm acting like I'm perplexed, and then I'm acting like I've never done the exact same thing as Stefon Diggs. And so he's just young and dumb, and this is what young and dumb people do. But he doesn't care about football at this point, I don't think, at all. Between the yacht parties and skipping OTAs and looking like he's passing out drugs to young girls, he's just all into what football can do for him. He's not into chasing being a great football player anymore. The reporting is saying the Patriots are not going to drop Stefon Diggs, but I think they actually should. Steve, what do you think?
Couple things. The reason why they're with each other, they're both disposable. This is a relationship of convenience. They both have some fun. They raise each other's profile. They create videos that go viral. That being said, I hope those kids make it. But in terms of being cut, this has actually been a large topic of discussion on 98.5, and there are some people there that absolutely want him cut. But Jason, look at that roster. There's no Edelman. There's no Wes Walker. There's no Stanley Morgan. There's no Irving Fryer. They actually need him. Here's the crime that Diggs committed, okay? It was the fact he was so public about it. If all of this was done out in private, none of us would know about it. Much like Belichick's relationship with Miss Hudson. If she was just in the background, there was no social media, she wasn't so upfront, no one would care. No one would even care enough to investigate. He could have had the exact same time on that yacht, in that club, doing the exact same thing, but if there was no video or stream of it, we would know and we would not care. And that's what would bother me if I'm Mike Vrabel. Because Mike Vrabel is not naive. That whole organization knew what they were getting with Diggs. They were getting talent and a certain temperament. I think the belief was this guy's old enough and mature enough to at least keep whatever he does out of the spotlight. Unfortunately, they were wrong. But even more unfortunate, Jason, they still need him.
This, to me, TJ and Steve, I'll let you fire first here, TJ. This is the ghetto version of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. This is the malt liquor of celebrity couples. And Stefon, and at some point, someone probably will play the race car. You celebrate Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
We didn't.
I agree, we didn't. But that's what this is. It's just a ghetto version of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Hold on, Steve's chomping at the bit. Hold on, TJ. Go ahead, Steve.
Being Korean, I know a little bit about liquor. I would say this is more like the Alizé version. But I'll say this. I don't find those two to be nearly as annoying as Travis Kelce and Swift. I'll just leave it at that.
They're pretty annoying. Yeah. Call it a tie. I would just say this. There's a difference that now Travis has been on the downhill, but he's really showed up in the playoffs and when they needed him, particularly 2 years ago, and was really good even with the distraction. Stefon Diggs was the number 2 receiver on his own team last year and is coming off a torn ACL. Why is he suddenly a necessity for the Patriots? I don't know who else is on the route. I just don't think he's any good anymore. I think he was already beginning to get washed up. He doesn't care about football, and he's coming off an ACL. So if you want to go be a distraction, go be a distraction. If you're going to be Travis Kelce in the playoffs, maybe you can put up with Taylor Swift, particularly if the NFL is doing everything they can to promote it and get new eyeballs.
Well, maybe they'll promote Stefon Diggs and Cardi B. Robert Kraft certainly would.
Yes.
And the NFL seems to love degeneracy, and so they're right on brand. Steve, I'm going to let you go and bring Shemeka Michelle in and get her expertise on this. We'll do that next.
We need some Davids in our culture today who are willing to stand up against the Goliath of the media and the Goliath of the corporate big tech world and the Goliath of some of these corrupt politicians and say, for Christ I live, for Christ I die. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Oh, do I have a witness here? God doesn't need black men to stand up. God doesn't need white men to stand up. God doesn't need Asian men to stand up. God doesn't need Hispanic men to stand up. God needs men of every background, of every color, of every character, of every kind who will stand up for Jesus, you soldiers of the cross. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Don't say my way is hidden from the Lord. The judgment that is due me is passed over from my God. Have you not known? Have you not heard? I feel like preaching
You know, we really did need to hear from E.W. Jackson after that Cardi B, Stefon Diggs conversation. And so now we're going to sandwich Cardi B and Stefon Diggs around E.W. Jackson. I apologize for that, E.W. But Shemeka, welcome back to the show. What do you think of my analogy calling Cardi B and Stefon Diggs the ghetto malt liquor version of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce?
Yeah, you know, I can actually picture a 40 of OE just as you talked about them. So I definitely agree. I hope it's a publicity stunt. I don't understand why Stefon would actually go this way. I think it was Justin that said this morning he's a player, so he doesn't think it'll last. I've actually heard that more than one time, that this is just a catastrophe waiting to happen. I don't think either one of these people are actually ready to commit to just one another. Maybe they're going to have an open relationship. I don't know. But it just seems like any man in his right mind would not try to attach himself to Cardi B. We know that she's, number one, not officially divorced. She has 3 children, the youngest being 8 months old. Why would you want to do that? Then she's constantly running to social media to put out all of her dirty laundry. I just don't see why a man who has something going for himself would actually want to hitch on to this. And then she's dragging her husband or ex-husband, soon to be ex-husband, calling him a deadbeat. And I'm going to go through some of the expenses that she claims he's left her with. But then there's also, Jason, she's always naked. This isn't just what she does on stage. When you see her, like when her and Stefon were at a basketball game, she's just always naked and showing her body off. So this isn't even about, oh, I'm an artist, and when I get on stage, this is how I dress. Even Beyonce has on clothes at the basketball games, but not Cardi B. Listen to this, Jason. She called Offset a deadbeat, saying that she spends 6 figures on their kids annually, and he did not help her over the last year. She says she pays $10K a month for her kids to have their own driver. She spends $45 a year for the 6-year-old school, $35, this is thousand. $45,000 a year for the 6-year-old, $35,000 a year for the 3-year-old, $3,000 a week for a babysitter, $500 a day for the 8-month-old's nanny, $250 an hour for a tutor. Then she goes on to say they are piano lessons, boxing lessons, gymnastics, personal chef, and security. Cardi, you could actually save some money by just being a mom. I don't understand why the 3-year-old needs schooling for $35,000 a year. You could be a mother. Cut out the babysitter, the nanny, the tutor. You could save yourself thousands of dollars by just being a mom. And she's not doing that. We're not seeing hit record after hit record. I don't understand why she can't be around her kids and is calling Offset a deadbeat because he's not willing to pay such ridiculous prices.
It's all just a flex in terms of even sharing, hey, I'm paying this much, blah, blah, blah. She's been convinced because she's a low IQ person. It hasn't been developed very well. The more money you spend on your kids, the better the parent you are. But for Stefon Diggs, I believe this is a brand play for him. This is him moving on to the next career after football. This is him positioning himself to be a podcaster, to be an NFL broadcaster. It's just a brand play. And actually, it's probably a wise one. He's connected himself to some degenerate rapper that gets a lot of attention, and it elevates Stefon Diggs into a bigger star because, he's a nice little receiver, but he's no name brand. He's not Michael Irvin. He's not any of these all-time. He's not Terrell Owens. But by dating Cardi B or pretending to date Cardi B, and to be the stepdaddy for offsides or illegal procedure, whatever that rapper's name is, his stepdaddy for his kids, it's a great brand play for Stefon Diggs.
I guess I don't know his skill level, of course, because I'm not a sports person, but does he have any children? Does he want a legacy? Because this is not where you should plant your seed. So hopefully this is temporary. This isn't something that he's looking at for the long term, because it just doesn't seem like a wise investment if you actually want a legacy that's worth something, that means something, meaning having children and building a family. This isn't the place to sow your seed.
This whole thing, TJ, ends up with Club Steph, or Steph's Arena. And I'm saying it leads to some podcast deal in the next year or two when he's done in the NFL.
I could see that. I mean, look, I think all the players now are trying to figure out how they can do the I am athlete pivot thing. I think every one of these guys have seen, all I got to do is show up and be just as worthless as Fred Taylor, and I can make millions of dollars in post-career. That's it. I got to find one guy who can talk, and the rest of us can be totally worthless.
I don't even know if they think about the money as much as the relevance. Because Fred Taylor's probably not making millions of dollars. I'm sure he's making nice money. But I just think the relevance, again, Stefon Diggs is sitting there, he's probably made $100 million, $120 million, whatever. He just wants to remain relevant and a celebrity post-career. It would be nice if he's generating millions of dollars, but mostly he's like, I got enough money. I just want to be a celebrity. I don't want to ride off into the sunset. I want to make sure I'm still getting invited to all the parties because I've got some podcast and I'm important.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I don't know that. I think all these guys just think it's so easy and they can just roll it out.
It is easy. When you look at the podcast space, and I don't mean this to disparage any of these guys I'm about to reference, but it doesn't take skill to do what Gilbert Arenas and these guys are doing, sitting around, camera on, dropping the N-word and F-word, and just telling, man, when Jordan did this at practice, I did that. And so it's it's like they're just hanging out on a corner just talking, and they put it up on the internet, and people, it sounds like I'm being totally petty and jealous here, because some of the things that happen on these shows are interesting, and I have some respect. Sometimes they say provocative things, but it's like I watch, and people think I'm picking on these guys, and I'm not, but it's like I watch Jeff Teague's podcast. It's one of the most unprofessional. Guys are sitting around slouched and just barely putting sentences together, and people are watching this. Yeah. Cameron and Mace just curse and say, just laugh and blah, blah, blah. And people are watching this in great numbers.
Do you think Stefon Diggs is as big of a star as Brandon Marshall was? That seems like a decent comp to me, actually.
Yes. Yeah, probably. That's a decent comp. But Brandon Marshall, a bit more probably interesting, but Stefon Diggs is making himself interesting right now.
Yes, I mean, to your point, Brandon Marshall was most known for the, green shoes, mental health awareness stuff and all that. Otherwise, he was a good player. He was number one wide receiver for a long time, good player, that's it. To me, not a Hall of Famer, not a, whatever. And he's the one who kind of started this trend in a real way.
I am athlete, yes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, why couldn't Steph do? It's just at some point it's going to get oversaturated. You're like, why do I want to listen to dumb people sit around and talk to other dumb people because they played football?
With no structure, no grain, it's all profane. Anyway, so we've Shemeka, if you got a final thought, fire it. If not, we're going to end the show.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It depends on the level of conversation on whether or not the podcast is hard to do. And for so many of them, it doesn't require a lot of thinking. And for the listeners, it doesn't require a lot of thinking as well. So many people don't even want to think outside the box. That's why they get so upset with you and us on this show, because sometimes you're required to think and to see things differently. And for a lot of these podcasts, you don't have to do that.
Shemeka, thank you. In 10 minutes, guys, we'll be on the Harmony channel. Virgil, Anthony, Kevin, TJ, and myself will have some reaction to the whole Pride Month deal, what's going on in the sports world, a little bit of conversation about Aaron Glenn, the new coach of the Jets. He's introduced Bible study to the Jets. We'll talk about that on the Harmony channel in 10 minutes. For right now, we'll play Tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I just want, I wanna be. I just want, I wanna be. I just want, I wanna be. I just want.